You basically have to take somebody's head off to convince them, okay, she's ready for the debate sphere, right? So this is where we talk about intellectual capture of the debate scene. Our existence was used as a topic in a game show. His plan was just to roll over me and make me look bad. Instead, he ended up being the one that looked bad. I can't say anything because I'll get destroyed.
Yeah.
I was wiretapped.
Yeah.
My mod team was wiretapped. And we were wiretapped at a very specific moment. If my community hadn't pushed me on Dylan Burns, I never would have said anything to him.
Yeah.
But what I was seeing was something bad happening to trans people on Dylan's show. Demon Mama not saying anything. All the people that are involved not saying anything, right? No one calling it out.
Yeah.
And my community screaming that this is... Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you pretty good. I hope everyone in the chat can hear Irene all right. Let us know. If not...
Hey, everybody.
So if you want to introduce yourself, nocommentchick.
All right, I am nocommentchick, and yeah, like you might have heard of me of various by various names. NCC is like a really popular one. That's what my haters tend to call me. But I am Irene Geller. I have a name. I am a person. I am not a vague abstract concept of excessive SJW-ness, as some debate bros would have you believe, right? That like literally painted as, I mean, I did have blue hair for a while, but like I guess I did fit the stereotype. But I didn't really fit their strawman version of what an intersectional leftist is, and you know that made me a few non-friends, let's just say.
So I'm seeing those emotes in the chat from your Discord. NCC bad. So what? This is like a whole thing. Like you've got like a subreddit and stuff, right?
Yeah, we do have. Oh God, I mean, we've got a lot of things in the works actually, and the subreddit is one of those things. We haven't really started the subreddit, but yeah, I do have a really active community. There are some really amazing artists among that community who do amazing work. Like this thumbnail. This thumbnail was done by Vamp77.
Sweet.
Sorry, thumbnail. What am I talking about? This emote was done by actually a lot of my thumbnails too. Most of my thumbnails are done by Vamps. But yeah, this is essentially, you know, what the debate bro scene. This is the chorus that they were singing 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Because you know you got to think that NCC is bad. Otherwise, you have to deal with her criticism, and her criticism is something that scene was not ready to deal with at all.
So let's go in straight from the start, straight from the top. Like, how did you get involved with the debate scene on Twitch?
So I got involved with the debate scene on Twitch. Basically, my friends.
The little dudes come up and like I just.
Okay, I'm gonna have to mute Twitch alerts. Thank you so much. You're giving me shout outs and they're having
Thanks
real
for following. Thank you for following.
Yeah, this is great,
guess,
but I just need to make sure that it doesn't actually show up. The YouTube alerts are off, and then the Twitch alerts are off. Good, we won't have any more of that interruption.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's what happens whenever I get a follower. Little dudes show up, and I have to say little dudes. But yeah, so I got involved in the debate scene based on the fact that I came from a very different scene. I came from, you know, a small like intersectional leftist kind of trans community. A lot of trans streamers, some friends of yours, a lot of people that you know, right? And you know, I was in there. I was doing my Bird Brains discussion, right? And I would have a lot of them on to talk about these issues. I got into a place where I met this streamer named A4 Andre. And if you know A4 Andre, he's his main thing is fighting games. He does what is it? Street Fighter, I think, is his main thing. But Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, all those like classic games, and apparently huge esports too, right? But in addition to that, he likes to talk about politics. He's a very you know, he's a very smart guy. His takes on politics are really good, and he wanted to have other small streamers on, which is, you know, a great thing. Kind of build their brand, expose his audience to them, let the audience know, you know, who else you could check out on this platform if you're into politics. And I was invited along with a lot of other people to, you know, show up and be part of a stream. It's through this that I started to get to know DebateBros, and I started to get, you know, the idea of, well, you know, it would be there's a whole conversation going on here, and it's a conversation that we, meaning marginalized people, are not a part of, right? Because the DebateBros scene does a good job at purifying itself purity testing itself, some would say, against people like me, right? Like my ideas, my takes are very unpopular and very easy to straw man over there. So, there's this idea like nothing about us without us. Well, here's a place where a lot of conversation was going on about us, and in a lot of ways without us. Now there are, I'm not like selling myself as the only like, trans femme debate bro or debate chick, right? There are a lot of other people there, but in general, it's harder to get in. You're not taken as seriously. You basically have to take somebody's head off to convince them, okay, she's ready for the debate sphere, right? And I eventually did that. I eventually got known as somebody who's going to get pretty spicy, when my when somebody's taking me to task, right? And I sort of did get in there, but it was a weird provisional acceptance, right? And this is something that Bad Bunny warned me about a long time ago in a very old Bird Brain session. I think it's still on my YouTube with much worse production quality. But Bad Bunny was basically saying that, when I said that I felt like I had to become one of the boys in order to play, she was like, yeah, that acceptance isn't real.
Yeah,
you're feeling like it's acceptance, but it's not really. And I found out that it's like as soon as I try to speak up, I'm the one getting muted, even though I'm talking the least, right? They'll have
so that
me
would
on
actually
their
happen.
panels,
You'd be on a
but they
panel
won't
and
really...
you would get muted by them when you were talking?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the thing is, like, all debate bros talk over each other. All debate bros gish gallop. All debate bros interrupt each other. All debate bros take too much time on a statement, right?
Yeah.
This is a common thing. And generally, the most that'll happen is like, hey, kind of watch it, right? But instead, I was like threatened with being muted, in a conversation that I really wasn't like able to participate in very much, because in a lot of ways, us entering into that conversation is seen as interrupting the boys talking.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe unconsciously. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're not doing it consciously. They're not like they're not, they don't realize that they're being this way, that it's just the culture and what it's kind of come to, and just like the accepted patterns, right? And So they just kind of fall into this without even like, if you asked, Prime Kai, whose panel I was talking about just then, he would have probably said, no, Irene got to talk plenty, but it's just this like this different perception, right? That they have of like how much we talk, right?
And so that's a really interesting thing. Sorry to stop you there, but
yeah, go ahead.
I ideally, the way that I have always seen Debate Bros, and the way that I think most of the people in my chat have seen Debate Bros, is that they have this idea that like, oh, we should debate people on the basis of free speech. We should let people, do you know what I mean? Actually,
that's
like,
a very big,
get their comments across, kind of thing. And so while they're saying that, they're literally muting a trans woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of fucking, free speech is that really? And lots of them tend to be, what do you call it? Portraying themselves as leftists, right?
Oh yeah, and like I think a lot of them are leftists, right? These are not all bad people, and this is something that I wanna emphasize, okay? Because when I first got to Twitch, and my friends, their perceptions of Debate Bros is like they're basically all Nazis.
Yeah.
And the fact is, and the nuance here is, actually, you're not completely wrong. There's people with really scary takes that I would say, like, how is this different than fascism? I can't really find any difference between this and fascism, that kind of blend into that scene.
Yeah.
And they portray themselves as like, oh no, I'm just a free speech absolutist. I just think that Nick Fuentes' opinion is, something that we should get. And you know what? If you're not willing to debate Nick Fuentes, are your ideas really that good to begin with, right? So like you were talking about, the free speech absolutism generally applies to somebody with terrible opinions before it'll ever apply to like, a marginalized person trying to get a word in edgewise on issues that affect my life. And that's where the kind of rubber hit the road as far as my conflict with the debate scene at large, right?
And so how did that sort of evolve? Because you got involved with this Andre guy, and then you went on some panels and stuff.
Yeah.
So you got muted a lot, and what kind of happened from then? Because I know that you got like quite sort of well known in that sphere, didn't you?
Right. Yeah, so yeah, and I want to like I don't want to portray myself wrongly. I don't want to come off as like so in general, the reason that I pay attention to conversations like Destiny's and Bosch's is because of the numbers there, right? There's a lot of people involved in this conversation and the fact that people like me are usually excluded. So if I do a video on something Vosh said, I'm going to get the attention of those people who normally only watch Vosh.
True.
And I'm going to be able to say, yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, but this doesn't make sense. And like, I think that like he doesn't understand this. And, you know, like this could be really better informed by, like, you know what I mean? I can kind of like put that stuff in that the debate bros are leaving out. And I have been actually pretty successful in reaching that audience and putting different takes in front of it. Now, you know, there is like sort of defense mechanisms to this, right? In that, like, for people like this, I'm a bigger threat, and Destiny said this.
Right.
Trans women, marginalized people are a bigger threat to him than Nazis that he debates.
He
because
literally
the worst
said that?
Yeah. He literally said that. I'll try to put the clip out when I get a chance, right? He literally said that like somebody like Demon Mama is more dangerous than Nick Fuentes because
and why
the
does he
worst
say
thing
that?
that Nick Fuentes can do is to yell about him to a bunch of Nazis, and Destiny says I don't really care what the Nazis think about me. Whereas Demon Mama, if she talks to the right person, could get Destiny, you know, canceled, right? Now, I mean, like she's another, you know, debate person that does toe the line. She's not, she hasn't had the kind of face turn, to use the Dylan Burns wrestling kayfabe language that you're seeing from me today, and that a lot of you have probably noticed earlier that there was a change in my content. What I'm trying to say is that like I had some thought that people like Vosh, that people like Xander Hall, that people like Destiny were reachable. That maybe they just had been in this bubble where they weren't hearing these takes, where they weren't hearing the argument. I unconsciously kind of believed the debate bro, it's like a dogma that that the stronger debate point, in other words, the truth, will win the day. That the marketplace of ideas is some kind of a purification chamber where the bullshit gets burned away and the real shit gets left up. And that's not true. I have won debates before and been, I will admit now, wrong on the substance. The debate that I had with Mix Vivian about Xander Hall comes to mind. I still think that Vivian had like this image of Xander Hall as this just young guy that she fucking hated. There was a lot of like sort of age stuff like at work there of like, who the fuck is this little kid, right? But there were also some substantive criticisms that Vivian made in terms of Xander Hall's interactions with people like Calvin Guerra. And who's
Calvin Guerra, sorry?
Right over that. Okay, sorry. Calvin Guerra is a trans guy, YouTuber, who's given a lot of toxic trans med takes and has bullied other trans
I know
streamers,
this person.
Right?
Yes,
Calvin Guerra is like not a good person, right?
No.
And Xander Hall had tried to quote unquote reach out to Calvin Guerra and get him to be better. I made the assumption that was helpful. And I don't think it was now. I think that Vivian was right. Yeah, Vivian was right about a lot of that stuff in the debate. And I've told her as much to her face, and I'm saying it on air now. Vivian was right. And my superior rhetorical skills obscured the truth that she was trying to bring to me and my community that day. This is like sort of a watershed moment when you start to realize that the line about like, you know, the thing that wins the day in the debate is provably not always the truth. Then you start to question, you know, kind of what you're participating in. And, you know, with a panel scene, it gets more complicated than that because there's a number of perverse incentives that come into play with the panel scene more than just like a one-on-one debate like the one that I had with Mix Vivian.
And so you know, we spoke, God, there's just so much to it, isn't there? Excuse me. So, you know, we spoke about that actually with Vema Sophie last week about how, you know, it is just simply a case of scoring points. And this is why the idea of, you know, debating when it comes to horrific ideas, sort of like, you know, white supremacist Nazi ideas and stuff like that, is totally fundamentally flawed, because you're never gonna, you know, if someone just so happens to be a good debater, for example, I think I brought it up to you when we spoke recently on Discord, you know, someone like a sophist, you know, someone who just comes up to a debate and just makes a bunch of points rapidly, gish gallops away, and like scores points, you know, but they're also a Nazi, then, you know, they've won the debate. And like you said, that obscures the truth of the argument. You're not actually, you know, gaining anything from that debate by platforming that person if they're able to sort of defeat you in the marketplace of ideas, as it were. So in terms of, you know, putting that side by side with your direct experience in there is really, really eye-opening. And in terms of, you know, what sort of stuff that you've seen on the debate scene in terms of, like, you know, platforming bad ideas and stuff like that, you know, what kind of stuff have you personally seen or personally been involved with? Like debates that are like really about shitty stuff.
Well, let me I think the one that people probably want me to talk about is Birdbrain's WrestleBrania. So I hosted a debate panel myself, as I said before, which started out as a panel for discussion with intersectional leftism, with intersectional leftists, with people that were from that circle. Now, I had some issues in that circle, and I think because of some personal shit that went down, I don't really regard this as being, you know, having an ideological tilt to it. I got really soured by that. I saw how social hierarchy can take even intersectional leftists and have them using the tools of social justice cynically to get gain over each other. Because we are dealing with fighting for a limited number of eyeballs, and, you know, destroying one person does tend to, you know, bring the eyeballs into other people's chat, right?
True.
So I want to point out that some of this nasty stuff that I'm going to talk about happened in the debate scene is also happening in, you know, more communities that at least, you know, put on the window dressing of intersectional leftism. But the biggest issue, I guess, was when there was a hippy dippy, that is Dylan Burns's property, his debate panel, the biggest on the scene, possibly soon to be the only debate panel on the scene, and it was a championship. So in other words, he was trying to make it more exciting by having a winner, you know, a master debate bro that won everything. And Demon Mama was kind of the crowd favorite, at least among my crowd. She's, you know, a trans streamer. She's pretty good on her takes for the most part. I don't agree with everything that she said. She's definitely, you know, not somebody, she's definitely not immune from these clout networks. So she is a part of all this stuff, you know, and I was too. I'll cop to that. But anyway, since she was on, and one of her main issues is trans rights, he also brought on some right-wingers, right, to discuss trans rights. So it's understandable, because, you know, you want to give people issues that they are experts on, and Demon Mama's definitely an expert on a lot of trans issues, but then you throw it over to a right-winger who, from his perspective, he's got a lefty audience. Okay, if there's tropes that they haven't heard about trans people, he's going to put them out there. He's going to put as many as he can. He's not going to convince the audience that trans rights, you know, shouldn't exist, right? But he is going to be able to infect people with certain ideas. The method that he used to do this is called a gish gallop, and that is when you say as many things as you can, as many points as you can in rapid succession. What this causes is for your opponent to make an appraisal of that situation. Imagine in Magic the Gathering, you've just put out 18 monsters, all right? Now your opponent cannot kill all those 18 monsters. Your opponent has to say, that monster can hurt me next turn, that monster can hurt me in 2 turns, I'm going to hit this and then this, right? So because of the limited amount of Rob Nora's points that Demon Mama and Vosh could push back against, there were points being forwarded, tropes, you know, weird ideas about trans people that they didn't have a chance to address. And I said as much on my stream. Dylan Burns apparently was watching my stream, right? Because he when I made a challenge, I said like, listen, Dylan, you know, I'd love to talk to you about this on Bird Brains. He took me up on that challenge. Now, right after he took me up, I found out that the guy had some stuff going on in his personal life, and I was like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't a good idea. I approached him and I said, hey, you know, I kind of know what you've got going on. Do you want to maybe put this off? This doesn't seem like the right week for this.
Yeah.
And he didn't get back to me. So I kind of assumed that, like, yeah, that was sounding good to him. And maybe he was overwhelmed. He gets back to me the day of the event saying, no, I'm ready to come on. You know, let's do this. So my ask with him was not great, was not big. Like some people would say Rob Noor shouldn't be platformed at all. That wasn't what I was asking for. Rob Noor is a right-wing streamer that Dylan burns through his paneling, and we'll get into this a little later.
Does he have a moniker? Does he have an online moniker?
Rob Noor?
Yeah. Is it just Rob Noor?
Oh, no, it's Rob Noor. Oh, wait, it might be Normal America or something like that. I know he's got a show called Noor, spelled like his name, Noer. I'm sure somebody in chat, if my people are here, can direct you to, you know, Rob's Twitch persona. But essentially, he was, before Dylan met him, he was a guy doing videos out of his car ranting, like 5-minute videos to like 5 people, right? He was kind of nothing. And because he was so convenient for Dylan to bring on as a right-winger who he knows isn't going to say the N-word, he knows isn't going to get him in trouble for TOS, but, you know, will come with right-wing ideas. Whereas Dylan would switch in and out the left-wingers that would come every week, the right-wingers were usually the same people, and he got to know those people. So this is where we talk about intellectual capture of the debate scene. Because right-wingers become so valuable of a commodity to you as a panel host who's doing right versus left panels, you end up making decisions that are going to make them happy because you need to keep them happy. If a left winger, if Demon Mama says, hey, I can't make the debate, then you call No Comment Chick and she comes in. If No Comment Chick can't make it, then, you know, Mixed Vivian Wolf will make it. Like, you're going to find a lefty to fill that slot no matter what. As far as a right winger, it's really hard because you don't know like who's safe, and a lot of the right wingers on Twitch have TOS themselves the fuck off the platform. So there was no right wing ecosystem. Ecosystem, right? There was no right wing ecosystem. Dylan unintentionally constructed one because of his needs of having right wingers. So Rob Noor is one of these kind of monsters, one of these Frankenstein monsters that this panel scene helped create. And
so that's horrific.
Who's on there spreading, you know, transphobic tropes, and there was no effective way to push back. So what I was asking for from Dylan, because I knew I couldn't ask for the world, I knew I couldn't ask for the moon, I just wanted Dylan to do something about the Gish Gallop, because I thought that particular technique used against marginalized people was something that there was no answer for it. I thought that during that competition, harm was done to trans people because our existence was used as a topic in a game show. And I didn't voice it that way. I said that I layered everything in what I called a compliment lasagna. You know, it's like a compliment sandwich. But just imagine there's like a little bit of criticism in between the cheese and the sauce and the lasagna. There's like the basil. There's a lot of shit in here. There's only a little bitty criticism. And I served up that compliment lasagna to Dylan, saying, "Hey, listen, you're better than most people out here. I talked to you rather than Prime Kai because I think Prime Kai would have shut the door in my face, right? I don't think I would have gotten anywhere with Prime Kai. But with you, maybe if I ask you for something really small, which is just like a little change in the way that you moderate, especially around the certain topic, that I could just like get him to say, hey, yeah, no, that's a good idea." Dylan was on this role, though, of saying that he'd done nothing wrong. And his plan was to go on my stream, show that my ideas had no substance, and then say, yeah, well, like vindicated, right? I did nothing wrong. Because he knew there was criticism. I wasn't the only one making the criticism, but I was the only large content creator out there, you know, forwarding this strong of a line. And like I said, it wasn't that strong of a line. There's a lot of people that could criticize my take and say, you know what? Why not just get Rob Noor the fuck off of that platform? Like, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's a valid take, you know? But I knew that was a non-starter. So I asked Dylan for something really minor, but his plan was just to roll over me and make me look bad. Instead, he ended up being the one that looked bad. And this is one thing about DebateBros. They love debates They love this weird honor system that they've got. They love dominance paradigm and toxic masculinity. But when they get beaten at their own game, the game is not over. So
Yeah.
after Dylan left, Bird Brains that day, he and it was a weird way that it happened. Like at the end of everything, I said to him, I kind of like, it was like one last chance of like, hey, do you think that is there anything different you're gonna do now, right? And he said, I think that like this is just proven that like I didn't do anything wrong and there's no problem at all. And, I don't really, he's kind of like just, putting his hand in my face after I'm reaching out to him and being like, yo, dude,
Yeah.
this is a way to like, you can clean up your reputation. People can start talking shit and it's only a minor little tweak. It's only a minor little change. And I think it would have material benefits for the trans people in your audience if you would do that. So how about it, Dylan? How about it, buddy? How about it, pal? And he slammed that door in my face. And after he did that, I kind of was like, all right, he might have wanted to talk some more, but I was like, I'm talking to a brick wall. There's nothing else to say. So I said, thank you very much, Dylan. Have a nice day. And I hung up on him. He was still on screen. And I started saying, I started basically saying, this isn't cool. This isn't right. There's like, and then I think I said something like, this is what it feels like, Dylan, to be a trans person in your audience. You can't speak. You can't hear. You're just kind of stuck here being looked at, right? And this was like this giant faux pas, or at least this is what Dylan made the argument about, because the substance of the argument is something that I've actually caught him recently on a talk with Sanderhall admitting was correct. He basically said NCC was right. Now, he didn't say NCC was right. He said that gish galloping was a problem when it came to marginalized people and better moderation needed to be instituted. So he's come around to my point of view, but he's changed the subject a million times. There was an issue with pronouns. He loves talking about that because most cis people are like, yeah, I called you they. What's the problem with that? Well, my pronouns are she, her, and you are introducing me to an audience of like 1,000 people with the wrong pronouns, right? I'm going to have to do some explaining after the fact. So if we could please just get my pronouns right from the start, since these people don't know me from Lilith.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I would appreciate that. And that became a big controversy. And to a lot of people, they thought that I was just being the pronoun police. She's going to make you say the right pronouns. She's got a zero tolerance policy. I absolutely don't. I know that pronouns can be a struggle for people. Hell, we're used to looking at a person, doing this weird little mental computation and spitting out a pronoun. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
We want to take that unconscious process and turn it conscious.
For
and
sure.
in doing that, there's going to be some hiccups. And I admit to that. All I wanted him to do was call me the right pronouns, and it doesn't have to be awkward. But then when you go in and say, well, I said they, them, isn't that good enough? You're making it awkward.
Like, oh
so
my
it became
God,
this thing.
Yeah, even though I
so,
totally misgendered you, like, I said the new one, so that makes me good, that's really absurd.
I mean, for some people, maybe it's easier just to call all trans people they, them, but that's a practice that I want to nip in the bud.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do that, but in doing so, I got drawn into a conversation where now everybody thinks that the conflict between Dylan and me was about pronouns. It wasn't. It was about platforming, and it's something that he's admitted that I was right about without mentioning my name. And you're going to see this as a kind of a pattern, for him in terms of not having a lot of allegiance to the truth.
So this is incredible because this is like, the way that you're putting this to me now is that, like, you've had this history of being like a left-wing intersectional sort of Twitch talking head kind of thing, just like me, like loads of people that we know, and you've gone into this scene and almost like, no offense, almost like the veritable good cop, you've wanted to like go in there and change the system from the inside, right?
Yeah.
And then in doing that, you've just had these like massive fucking people with huge platforms like turn on you. And also what's interesting is their audiences, like you said, seem to already be there ready with these straw man arguments to be like, oh, she's the blue-haired SJW, you know, this thing that doesn't exist really. Like, yeah, sure, like maybe you could fucking find, you know, 3 examples. Like there's those 3 women that people always point to, isn't there? There's like the one in the university hall, there's the one with the red hair, and there's like
the red hair one is based as fuck. Check out the red hair if you get a chance. She's actually really cool. She was at an MRA convention or something like that, and she was just out there talking to the MRAs, and she was giving it to them good. Like she wasn't like the triggered SJW making no sense, just screaming at the top of her lungs because she has no argument. She was destroying these fucking MRAs, and they made her into some kind of pariah because you know she looks like I don't know, people's annoying aunt or something like that. I don't know.
Well, it's misogynism. It's misogyny, isn't it? And also, you know, very interesting that like they just it's just sorry, I'm trying to like process everything because it is like so much, but like, you know, they are there saying like, oh, you know, we need to you know, have a platform to discuss all these ideas, and they're just like shutting you the fuck down. Because here's the thing, let me tell you about what I know about Dylan Burns. I think that I first like gave him a follow on YouTube when not on YouTube, on Twitch, maybe about 2 years ago. I think I'd heard like a couple of people mention his name, and I was like, all right, I'll check this guy out, do you know what I mean, and see what's going on. And, you know, had a little look and thought, oh yeah, here's some pretty good takes, do you know what I mean? And then the more and more it went on, I didn't really pay attention because, of course, he was part of this big debate scene, which is probably why I don't know you that well, to be honest. And then, oh, well, at the time. And so then, you know, I'm not really paying attention to anything. And then all of a sudden I see this, you know, drama about Dylan. There's lots of people saying that he's a dickhead and stuff like this. And he's like, you know, making these safe places for Nazis and right-wingers and stuff. You know, we've already talked about how his audience is, you know, they're ready to go with the age-old straw men of like, you know, fucking colored hair lesbians getting mad at, you know what I mean, society and stuff. What kind of like, you know, evidence? Because I remember seeing he had a fucking debate with a guy whose name was literally Big Papa Fascist, and aside from being like hella cringe, you know, the guy's an open fascist, like literally, like, you know what I mean, I'm an authoritarian piece of shit who wants to, you know, stamp on marginalized people. Literally had that guy on his stream, right? That's like a thing.
Yeah.
Like what have you seen in his community that's like, in terms of like Dylan's community? Yeah. What have you seen in terms of like far right wing, extreme right wing people knocking about in there?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll talk about this in several ways. So like I told you before, that Dylan's formula for success on the panel scene is maximum conflict. You get maximum conflict not through having two, you know, reasonable lefties debate, not by having a leftist debate a neoliberal, but rather by, you know, having, you know, some right-wingers on the panel to, you know, go full MAGA and everything. So this had like several effects. This was so essentially building the career of right-wing creators. I almost want to say Confederate Television. His name is Critically Thinking Vet, CTV. I always want to say Confederate Television for some reason.
I know this guy.
Yeah, but like, you know, he's pretty well known. He's given a dinosaur take before where he compared trans people to Jurassic Park, in that those weren't really dinosaurs. They were recreations, abominations, if you will, of nature, created through mixing dinosaur DNA fragments found in amber with frog DNA. And it just shows you that just because science can do something doesn't mean it should. The comparison he was making there was with trans people.
Yeah, it was horrific.
And Dylan Burns laughed at it. Like, now, let me not mischaracterize this. Dylan Burns isn't transphobic. He wasn't being anti-trans. He wasn't laughing with CTV. He was laughing at CTV because funny redneck makes stupid story about Jurassic Park. And he didn't see there's just no depth in his analysis.
That's the issue. That's the issue.
Maybe his fatal flaw, right? That he'll see something like that and not realize that it's anything more than a goofy MAGA chud like going off. He won't see the like sort of the abomination that CTV is calling us, because like even CTV is able to subtext deeper than Dylan's able to see, and that makes somebody, you know, really problematic. Listen, I don't want to like completely, you know, harp on on Dylan. He's the debate, bro, nexus point that I've had the most experience with.
Yeah.
But none of the shit is good. And like I said in the beginning, I went to Dylan because I thought there was a better chance in reaching out to him.
Yeah,
than,
he's more
with
left-wing
other...
than like Destiny or maybe Vosh, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe at the time, I thought so. I wouldn't really, say that now. I think that, so we talked about building platforms for right-wing creators.
Yeah.
We talked about, I think I might have touched on intellectual capture, right?
Yeah, what do you mean by
that's kind
that?
of what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so if your life revolves around, your main point is like, I'm going to make sure I have 4 righties for this panel on Friday. You got to keep those people happy. You're going to see those people every week. And you're going to have more chance to become friends with them, to develop a relationship with them. You're going to start to see the world a little bit through their eyes.
Right,
and
okay.
That's what I mean about intellectual capture. I think that
Yeah.
Dylan was kind of a different person when he went into streaming. Like when I met him, he seemed, all right too. I mean, he's definitely not like a leftist, but he was maybe, seemed just like kind of a sock dim, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
sort of a reasonable person with pretty good takes. I think that he's changed based on what he's had to do. Yeah, so the two things I've mentioned before, and then the third thing is perverse incentives. Now, so you're talking about the Big Papa Fascist debate. Yeah, that's literally the dude's name, Big Papa Fascist. Dylan debated this guy on trans rights. What is the perverse incentive there? Well, the perverse incentive is that you can do debates that will cause harm to marginalized people, but will benefit you greatly.
Yeah.
As far as expanding your reach, as spreading your name. I mean, look, I don't think that Dylan went into this thinking that he was going to lose the debate.
No.
I think he went into this thinking that he could be the hero for trans people by pushing the fascist's face in the mud. And he tried, but this guy was a better debater than Dylan. And after Dylan lost the debate on trans rights, he tagged in Rob Noor.
Right, so
who is no friend to trans people. And Rob Noor and Big Papa Fascist continued to debate about which one of them was a grifter. So it went from Dylan trying to defend trans rights to Big Papa Fascist and failing miserably, to 2 right-wingers arguing over who was the real right-winger. I don't know. And Dylan's just sitting here like I think he was like eating something, and I don't think it was, in my mind it was popcorn, but maybe it wasn't really popcorn, and just kind of laughing. And it's like, dude, this isn't fucking funny.
No.
Like, if you have skin in the game, if you're a trans person, right, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
And it's not, we can't have the detachment from these issues that you seem to have.
What makes me fucking laugh is that he can't see that he actually does have skin in the game as well, because if we end up descending into some kind of fascist society, dem socks will get fucking put in the gas chambers exactly the same as marginalized folks. So anyone with any kind of inkling of like left-wing ideas, even centrist, even like known centrist, that's literally the first thing that happened in Nazi Germany. It was these big purges of like anyone that's like remotely associated with anything left-wing. So
you cannot make a separate piece. Like, a lot of people have tried, and it's gone badly.
Exactly.
It's gone badly for the Strasserites, for anybody who thought that they could, like, hey, listen, they're coming through. There's nothing I can do about them. Maybe I can be their friend, and they'll leave me alone. That never works out for you, because the way that fascism works is it picks a scapegoat, it takes out that scapegoat, it either neutralizes you or destroys you, right? And then it moves on to the next, and now that person is not there to help you. No. And the famous speech, first they came for the communist, and I said nothing because I wasn't a communist. Before you know it, you've got no friends left, and you who think you've argued or you've negotiated a separate piece for yourself are finding your own head on the chopping block.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so ridiculous in terms of what. And you could see that this is all motivated by, profit incentive at the end of the day. That's what it all just appears to be. It's another cog in the wheel of capitalism. I imagine Twitch love it, because it brings in a hell of a lot of income for them. And that's probably why, you know, I don't know why people like this, because, you know, I'm seeing here that this Rob Nur guy, you know, he's still got a channel. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is this guy allowed a channel if he's saying shit like, you know, or was it critically thinking vet?
Oh
the
yeah,
guy
critically thinking veteran.
Right.
Yeah, critically thinking veteran. Well, you know, I mean, like I've tried to bring attention to some of the critically thinking veterans takes. I don't even like the dinosaur one. That's a famous clip, is the thing, and Dylan's on it, and Dylan's made money off of this clip, right? And he's, like I said, he's not against trans people. Like he's friends with trans people. He's not, you know, anti-trans himself. I don't think he understands our issues. I don't think he takes our issues seriously. But he is, you know, his takes are going to be on the right side. He's not somebody that agrees with CTV, but he's somebody that I guess doesn't see the harm in what CTV's doing and in that those kind of tropes, right? That like we're genetic, or we're like, you know, scientific abominations, freaks of nature, experiments, right? He doesn't see how harmful that shit can actually be, even when it's, you know, done in the form of a ridiculous redneck just making an ass of himself to most of us. He doesn't see that it's not just left-wing eyes seeing that video, it's also right-wing eyes, and it looks very different to those right-wing eyes. But yeah, that's not even the worst thing. Critically thinking veteran, even more recently in a debate with Rose Wrist, ended up giving a take. You can check it out yourself and see what you think about, but it sounded like what he was saying was that segregation, that black people were better off under segregation.
So critically thinking vet and Rose Wrist?
Rose Wrist, yeah. Rose Wrist was the person debating against critically thinking. Now, normally critically thinking veteran will appear on panels like Dylan Burns' panel, and in that case, you know, you don't really get into his views on a lot of things. You get him to give his take, but then there's somebody else talking, and so you don't really get any depth. Rose Wrist was able to really peel beneath the surface in what critically thinking veterans' resistance towards acknowledging systemic racism was. And what we found at the core of that nasty-ass onion was tacit support for segregation.
So this is...
I don't know how else to phrase it, right? That's what I heard. Maybe
can I pull this from your video? Is it in your video?
You'll find it on No Drama Chick, right? Which is if you go to my channel and scroll to the bottom, Friends of the Sisterhood. That's my sister, No Drama Chick, who looks a lot like me. It's just a place to put videos that are more maybe contentious. Than,
No Console Chick.
No Console Chick is my gaming channel, but No Drama Chick is right next to the
No
one
Drama
that looks
Chick.
like a wrestler,
Right,
or 007 kind of, I guess, is the current branding. But yeah, that's where you'll find the clip of the and you can tell me what you think.
Oh, this one here, this one here. Okay, yeah, let's have a look at this.
Oh no, that. Oh, okay, yeah, probably.
It's this one, yeah.
We're on a delay, so
Veteran goes mask off versus Rose Wrists on segregation.
That's the one. Yeah, yeah.
Let's have a listen.
Which is in 1964, which I've actually heard members of the black community that are older that actually have argued that the black community was much better off whenever it was segregated because...
What the fuck? You have the same look on your face as me.
At least then, people knew what side of the street to walk on, and because of that, those
That's absurd.
communities kept their own money inside their own community, and that's when they started to be able to be...
Oh my god, yeah, okay. Yeah, that is absolutely horrific. Yeah, how can this person still be on Twitch? You know, it says to me, it just shouts out to me that they are, you know, they love this shit. Do you know what I mean? They love this shit because it is, at the end of the day, it seems to be an egotistical venture for people like, you know, Dylan Burns, at least, you know, people who are going on these debate panels, and maybe sort of, like you said, like a scrambling to get more eyes on their content, you know, a shit sort of.
I almost feel like what it does, and like I said, I don't think Dylan was like a horrible person going into this, right?
No.
But I feel like the perverse incentives of the platform almost socially engineer us into that, in that the person that's willing to follow those perverse incentives to their logical conclusion will be the winner.
Yeah.
Will be the one that ends up with the most eyeballs. If you were absolutely willing to jettison, you know, and it doesn't happen all at once, it's very much like a slow, like, attrition. Like I said, intellectual capture. I don't think Dylan would say that he's, you know, moved in his political stance. I don't think that he maybe notices a lot of this stuff. I think that a lot of these people, they've got a story to tell themselves. They've got a rationalization for their behavior that they're at least able to, you know, use to sleep at night. But yeah, it's something that doesn't really stand the light of day.
No.
And it's only able to be a valid excuse in that little circle. When this stuff gets exposed to, you know, outside the insular little group there, it looks really bad.
Yeah.
And I would, you know, if I were able to say, you know, things to people in the scene right now, get off that tower before it crumbles to the ground, because there will be a day of reckoning.
Yeah.
This shit is not good. This shit is hurting a lot of people, and it's only a matter of time before the harm is exposed to a larger community. And in that exposure, if you're seen to be part of that, it's not going to have good consequences. All of the, because a lot of these people, like, if you ask them, if you got them alone and you said, like, listen, it's not being recorded, just like you and me, let's talk this out. Like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? Why are you okay with this shit? This is not what you believe. What's the deal? They'd tell you, listen, yeah, I know, it's fucked up, okay? I can't say anything because I'll get destroyed.
Yeah.
But I do have a plan. I am accumulating clout through pleasing people like Dylan Burns, through doing what people want, through getting in with these people. When I've got enough of it, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to blow this whole scene up.
Yeah.
And that shit never happens, because the person that gets to be at that top position of the pyramid is the person who has followed every single one of those perverse incentives. So if you're the good person who's avoiding that shit, if you're the good person who's even, let's say you're doing some harm, let's say you're contributing to some harm, let's say you're in with a group that's causing this, right? But you're telling yourself, yeah, this is just for now. You're not going to be in the position to take them down. If you do get into that position, you will be the one who's been socially engineered, and those things that you plan to do will not seem like good ideas for other reasons, right?
Yes.
It's just like capitalism. Rich people continue to want to accumulate even though they've got more than they could spend in several lifetimes, and it's because they then point their focus to, like, okay, but how am I doing versus my neighbors in the rich neighborhood? Oh, do they have more money than me? Well, that's a problem. So yeah, the perverse incentives, you know, it seems like you could take that course for a while and then turn away from it, but you will not even think to do those things that you think that you'll, you know, do now once you accumulate that kind of clout. The way that you become Dylan Burns is the way that you become Darth Vader.
Sure. Yeah.
Fuck, I don't mean to be using Star Wars metaphors here.
No,
right?
It makes sense. It totally makes sense, because Darth Vader started out wanting to be kind of good, thought that he was doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, he's a tool of you know, the dark side, innit? You know what I mean? And that is literally it. Like, and look, you know, you don't have to worry about fucking, you know, having a go at Dylan fucking Burns on my channel.
I just was worried I was being
none of my
nerdy.
audience
I was being overly nerdy with my metaphors, but I also wanted to take the other part of that Darth Vader metaphor, which is that if you, I think I did the end of Star Wars or something, he actually, you know, there's some of Anakin Skywalker left in Darth Vader.
That's right.
And that's what we got to remember, is as much as these people, you know, look like trash from our perspective, there may be a conscience in some of them. And like, I really don't want to like, just like this, you know, like, I mean, a lot of us in the intersectional left tend to adopt this idea where we look at all these people as contaminated, as polluted. That is somewhat true. That is somewhat true. Even if they don't have odious beliefs themselves, they're locked into a clout system which won't let them fight those odious beliefs the way that they need to.
This is something I wanted to talk about, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of, so, you know, how that happened to you, because as I said, you were like quite high up there in terms of, you know, you were getting clout, you were accumulating that clout, right? And then that kind of like, you know, went bad for you when what you were talking about before happened with Dylan, right? Like, you were like, listen, we can't be platforming these ideas. And then, you know, with that lasagna, you said, like, the compliment lasagna thing. And then, like, what happened to your clout then?
It's really interesting because like the numbers actually went up at first, but a lot of that was hate watchers. A lot of that was like
Right.
Dylan's community coming over to see what I had to say. Because to a lot of people, this is like soap opera, right? Like a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people, like look, a lot of people are checked out of the real issues and see them only as game show topics, like I said. But they, these interpersonal issues also become fodder for entertainment, right? And that is the problem. Now, I've always viewed drama as a dangerous force of nature, which I want to harness for my benefit. By benefit, I mean people are looking at the drama. You move the drama over here, they look over here. You move the drama, they look over here.
Yeah.
So what I've always tried to do is say, okay, we're going to cover the drama, but I'm going to put something in front of it. So when you're looking at the drama, you're seeing the issue that underlies the drama. With Dylan, it was an issue of platforming. I tried to do that, but the dog pile was just too heavy. There were too many people coming at me from too many different sides, and apparently there were people that had like a target on my forehead for a long time, including possibly Dylan, because like in addition to seeing each other as, you know, sources of drama, sources of intrigue, we also tend to see each other as competition. And you know, if you can eliminate some of that competition, especially considering that I did have hosted a panel stream, which is kind of like in a lot of ways the opposite of what Dylan Burns did, but not unproblematic. I mean, Dylan Burns is somebody I platformed. Also, the other people that I platformed, like the last Bird Brains was probably the worst lineup that I've ever had in terms of people actually, you know, knowing the issue. So even I think I was subject to some of those perverse incentives of bringing on the person who's well known versus bringing on the person who knows well.
Yeah, sure.
And that's the difference. We are thinking about starting back Bird Brains, but I don't want to feed into this panel bullshit.
No.
And if we do, it's going to be around that idea that it's not about aggregating clout. It's not about, you know, getting my name out there. It's about supporting small creators, and especially small creators who know a hell of a lot. Only Facts TV is a great example of that. You know, not a well-known person on the Twitch platform, but great takes, should be platformed, should have a space to talk. Maybe we don't agree on everything, but we can talk that out. And like the way I see it is like we don't want to frame something as a debate panel, because then that puts us in the position, all right, we got to hard disagree, we got to go at each other. Frame it as a discussion panel. If we really do have, you know, views that are irreconcilable, then maybe we can talk those out. Maybe you'll teach me something. Maybe I'll teach you something. Maybe we'll both come away from it with a better perspective. But what we don't want to do is get into the dominance paradigm where there's a winner and there's a loser in the debate, and then the loser wants to come along like Dylan Burns did and try to win the media cycle, because that was his next move. He moved from like losing the debate to going on a world tour of everyone's stream that he could, and doing really, you know, really kind of shady things. Like, right, he was coming out about his, you know, sexual abuse that he'd experienced at roughly the same time, and he actually packaged one of the NCC bad streams with a, you know, I was sexually, you know, assaulted kind of packaging, right? So that then when I came around and said, hey, this isn't right, you are slandering me, you know, you're using this other streamer to kind of launder what is essentially your toxicity, and like, I'm not okay with this. The response was, are you against survivors of sexual assault? So they will use the quote-unquote id poll. They will use the SJW shit when it benefits them, and it's very selective. Yeah, it's very, they'll turn on a dime and all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, no, you're fucking yikes as shit, you know? Like like people from Dylan's community were calling me ableist because I was getting down in the dirt with him, and that is one regret that I had. I probably said too many ad homs. I was, you know, I was pissed. And like, you know, even though like there's a lot of problems with Dylan and his platform and the whole DebateBro scene, I don't think that we need to, you know, roll around in the mud like them. I don't think that like, you know, ad homs have their place for people like Nick Fuentes, okay? Yeah. But beyond that, you should really use them sparingly. And I got into the, you know, mode of just like, you know, just anything that will make somebody look like an idiot, like, you know, I'll grab onto that and I'll use that. And yeah, some of the things that I was saying were ableist, but it was in an environment with overwhelming ableism. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've kind of you know, reconsidered you know, during this whole thing.
Well, see, this is the thing. It's like because you do tend to get a lot of people who aren't part of the debate bro scene, who won't touch anyone who's been involved with it with a barge pole, which is, I think, incredibly damaging, because of course there are people like you out there who are, you know, genuinely trying to change it from the inside, and you know, getting absolutely ransacked as a result of that. You know, having your numbers go down and shit like that, and like, you know, far be it from me to judge what's going on, but I think you're probably better off without those people anyway. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, and what I'm trying to say here is that, like, you know, there are people out there that I, you know, quite value on the left, you know, in terms of having like a big platform, and you know, who are not part of the debate scene, but they're sort of like on the fringes of it, and like sometimes they want to dip their toes in there. Like Lance from the Surfs is the main person that I know, like the main person that I follow about that, because you know, Lance tends to have like really good politics, like really, really good left-wing politics.
Yeah.
But then for some reason wants to platform Lauren Southern. You know, so I'm like, okay, so I understand the idea behind that, and I understand the fact that if you do that from the same, you know, length that you're coming out, it's funny because generally speaking, I thought the debate bro mantra was actually like, oh, let's reach out to people on the left. Let's reach out to people on the right and bring them left, right? Mm-hmm. But now there's people on the left saying, let's reach out to the debate bro sphere and try and bring them left. Like,
Just... There is a parallel there, and I think that there was folly in some of my the strategy that I went at this with. I was naive in thinking that like all that was missing was the right takes. That these people really believed in logic and really believed in, you know, reason and all the things that they say that they're passionate about, then hearing the intersectional leftist take put in the best way possible was going to be what flipped them, was going to be what turned them. I really was, you know, naive in this, and like, you know, I found out that when you mess with somebody that's got clout, and like, listen, it's not just him. It's, you know, Dylan Burns, he's got a lot of reach, he's got a lot of power, but there's a lot that Dylan can do for anybody, including my friends, right? Including people that were always with me, right? They then see, you know, there's a big downside to standing with me and standing up for me. And this was one of the biggest disappointments of all. Absolutely nobody in the content creator, and I mean nobody, stood up for me. Against Dylan Burns. And because of that, because of the dog pile, because of the difference in the ability of him to get reach, whereas I was saying, you know, the truth, I was untangling the web that he was weaving on my stream, but his stream is, you know, getting, you know, so in like hundreds of times more views than mine is. So, you know, eventually that was going to cost me social media wise. He ruined my reputation. He lied to a mass audience about who I was. And this is the coup de grace, all right? And I got to speak very carefully about this because this involves a matter which could, you know, potentially go to court. So I don't want to make any claims, you know, here about legality or illegality. But Dylan Burns did get a mod in my community to record us, which is against, to my understanding, against the law in my state, against the law in her state, and I think even against the, I don't know if, you know, Dylan's location really matters, but essentially did something of very dubious legality, and we're talking about Nixon stuff. I was wiretapped. My mod team was wiretapped, and we were wiretapped at a very specific moment. So this moment was after Bird Brains. You know, when I talked to Demon Mama to try to, at a last step gap, to get Demon Mama, who's friends with Dylan, to diffuse the situation between us and like give me a chance to, you know, kind of like come on and talk about this. Instead of bringing me on, she brought Dylan on. Then the next day there was another drama stream on another streamer's channel about me. So after this attack on us, my mod team met and we were strategizing. This is when we were recorded, right?
Right.
And like I said, really fucking dubious legality. I
That's
don't
super
understand
fucked up.
how what Zonia did, who was the mod that recorded us, right? I don't know how what she did could be considered legal, but like I said, I'm not going to comment on issues of legality or anything like that. Nor will I comment on the content of those logs, but I can tell you that she recorded me and my mod team. She brought those logs back to Dylan, right? And she recorded us at the height of our panic.
Yeah.
About like how do we take on this larger streamer who's trying to destroy us, right? So there were brainstorm ideas going out there in terms of how to deal with this. So Zonia goes to Dylan with these tapes. She puts kind of a wrapper on these tapes of like she primes Dylan's audience for what they're going to hear, because all they are is audio logs, and so she's got to set it up and say this is this is that, this is the other. She set it up in a way that led Dylan's audience to believe that these recordings were taken prior to the incident, prior to there being any drama, that my mod team was on the reg plotting the downfall of Dylan Burns. And they basically bamboozled a whole lot of people in this. There were a lot of people that were convinced by those logs that the person who's sus is nocommentchick, that she was trying to set up a drama, that she was trying to benefit from this. I don't see how, if you look at my subs before and you look at my subs after, if you look at any measure, I don't see how you can find benefit in this. But this was the claim, was that like I did this all not because I cared about trans people, but because I was trying to get one over on Dylan, that I was trying to take his audience, that I was being sus as fuck, right?
Yeah.
And that is what got carried forth. So yeah, like it's I've never heard of anything this extreme happening on Twitch. People releasing DMs that they have, which is legal, by the way. You might, depending on the situation, you might call it unethical, but it's legal.
Yeah.
Unquestioningly. To doing something which the legality of which was dubious, right?
Yeah.
And
also
the fact
just in
that,
general,
like,
really shitty.
none of the none of this was really concentrated on. It was all because people are kind of unaware of the law. They think that if you make a phone call to somebody and you record that phone call, and like that you can then take that, like that seems logical to most people. Yeah, no, I was on the phone call, I recorded it, it's fine, right? It's not fine. It's illegal. In a lot of states, not in every state, and it's different depending on where you are in the world and if you're in this state versus the other state in the United States, right? But it's dicey. It's not straightforward. Most people kind of think it's straightforward, and if what they find is presented to them as like, this looks really bad for nocommentchick, oh my gosh, look at what we found, then it almost justifies it. It's like, well, we found fault in you, therefore whatever means that we used are justified.
Yeah.
And that's
it's fucked.
That's what I've lived through. That has been my last 5 months. So they use these to just absolutely poison the well of my reputation, to paint me as somebody that was trying to do something awful, when all I was trying to do was stand up for trans people, when the rest of y'all debate bros refused to do so.
And it's super fucked
trans
up,
creators among them.
You can even it's just absolutely mind-blowing to me how insidious it actually turned out to be, because even me sitting on the outside of DebateBros and not ever really engaging with them, I knew that the idea of debating a Nazi was bad. I knew that the idea of debating right-wingers in general is also bad. Right. But in terms of but it may, flawed, at the very least. And in terms of like coming into this now and like getting to know you, and because we've chatted about this off stream as well, and learning about so much of the stuff that goes on, like you've told us here today, it's like, it's so insidious. So not only do they have this like pyramid, like you say, it's literally a hierarchy, which I imagine Destiny is at the top of, and maybe Vosh, or I don't know, some other people.
It's a bit intolerant. They're struggling for, you know, who's top dog.
That's what I mean,
right,
yeah.
Right
so
now,
they're
as a
at
matter
the
of fact,
they're at the stage now where they're like, maybe, I don't know, fighting, like maybe someone thinks Destiny's the top, maybe someone thinks
Look,
whoever's
if
at the
you've
top.
seen
whatever.
Golden Wind, right, and you've seen the way that the mafia is portrayed in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5 Golden Wind,
Yeah.
like that's something like it. It really does. It really is like, you know, clout networks, and there's a lot of underhanded shit, you know, going on all the time. There has been this is, you know, this goes on in, you know, Destiny's community, this goes on in Vosh's community. Anyone who has like a large, you know, following basically also has to run, you know, a gang.
It is
And
mafia
those
shit.
gangs do not play nicely, right?
No.
Those gangs do not play nicely at all. There's a lot of, you know, spying on each other. There's a lot of, you know, kind of bullshit. You mentioned, you know, Lance and Lauren Southern, and I agree with you that I don't think that Lance was bringing Lauren Southern on to rehabilitate her. However, I do think that what he did and what Xander Hall did in debating her. So Lance and Xander Hall were two of the first people to debate Lauren Southern after she had been irrelevant for a few years, right? And their goal was to smash her, to expose her for what she was, to make her answer for some of the bullshit that she did. I think that while Lance probably went into this with good intentions, it had horrible effects. And Lance, you should have known better.
Yeah,
you really
yeah.
should have known better than to do that. Lance is somebody that brought me onto this platform. Like, Lance's like encouragement, you know, of we need more bread tubers, we need more people, we need more hands on deck. It's what got me into content creation in the first place. So it's really sad for me to say this, but yeah, Lance did a lot of harm and Xander Hall did a lot of harm in bringing Lauren Southern on to debate. Now, these two creators were not like trying to rehabilitate her.
No.
Since that's happened, there's been a number of people in the Twitch politics scene that have looked at the example of Shoe on Head, of Hunter Avalon, as some of the other right-wingers who have seen the dead end in alt-right content creation and have decided to turn slightly to the left and want to, you know, kind of get in with us, right?
That's right.
They have seen Lauren Southern as their latest project.
Right.
And like, these people that are supporting Lauren Southern, I got some real questions. Like, I don't know if like their idea of changing Lauren Southern is just a lie from the get-go. I don't know if what they're doing isn't something more akin to entryism. And Lance and Xander Hall, listen, as much as you both like are people I've considered friends in the past, I can't help but place the blame at your feet.
Yeah, no.
You debating Lauren Southern normalized her to the point where this could happen, and right now she's got a Twitch channel that is, you know, skyrocketing. She's bringing people to this platform who weren't on this platform before, or maybe who had left this platform, who've, you know, just increased the toxicity level unimaginably. And you know, it's through the you know, just kind of mistakes that they've made like this, thinking that they could be the hero that slays the alt-right giant, that this has been made possible. So
so basically I want to just describe, because I know that AJ is just asking in the chat, I don't know, you know, who Lauren or Lance is. So basically this is the whole reason that I wanted to do the stream and get nocommentchick on, because this is kind of an extension of the conversation that we were having, me and Sophie, last week about sort of leftist culture and how leftist culture needs to grow and how we need to build leftist culture. Now, you could argue that the debate scene is leftist culture because there's a lot of left-wingers on it, you know, and those left-wingers do dubious shit, like Irene has told us, like, you know, platforming fucking literal Nazis, and also, you know, trying to topple marginalized people just for telling him to like literally calm down. So that's kind of why I want to do this, because if we're gonna, you know, you kind of have to accept that it's undeniable that this machine, this sort of like mafioso machine, has a lot of fucking clout associated with it. So, you know, in terms of attacking it from the outside, I think that's a pretty good way to start. You know, at least sort of like challenging the ideas and stuff like that. Basically, Lauren Southern is a white supremacist. She championed the Great Replacement theory. There's an excellent video by Sean, if you know Sean, the skull guy on YouTube, really cool guy, did a great fucking video on the Great Replacement theory and why Lauren Southern is talking absolute shite. She's basically just a Nazi. And Lance from the Serfs Yeah, Sean Vids, yeah. Lance from the Surfs, generally speaking, great guy. Generally speaking, a great guy. But he platformed Lawrence Southern, who was, as Irene correctly pointed out, completely irrelevant. After like maybe, I don't fucking know. I hadn't heard of Lawrence Southern for maybe a year or two, you know, before Lance was talking about debating her. Like, what are you debating her for? Like, what? Do you know what I mean? It was just so ridiculous. So yeah, just in case anyone.
And I agree that.
Yeah, didn't know. That's the crack.
I agree with you that Lance probably went into this with the best of intentions. I think he's a good guy, but I want to let you know about a little phenomenon, okay? As good as our intentions are, if you're going to play the game, and Lance is playing the game, DemonMama's playing the game, these are two creators that I think are somewhat hemmed in by the Clout Network. I think that absent of a Dylan Burns kind of, you know, exerting force on them, I think that they would be, you know, better creators. I think that some of the mistakes that they've made would have never happened, you know. Yeah. But when you are, you know, that person and you're bought into this clout pyramid, you can only be as good as Dylan will let you.
Yeah.
And you start becoming intellectually captured too, because you've got to justify your association with these people that you know are doing harm, and tell yourself that maybe it's not that bad, or it's, you know, you can be a good influence on them. That's another, like, there's all these rationalizations that people have for staying hooked up to that clout network, including just like, you know, and here's one that's really understandable. Putting food in your stomach, putting a roof over your head. It's not an easy thing to do as a content creator. And if you want to be full-time, like, going against somebody like Dylan Burns, going against somebody like Prime Kai is going to be hazardous for your health, right? Literally going to fuck up your material conditions. So there's like understandable reasons that these people get pulled along, but we do have to notice that they are getting pulled along, and that, like, you know, Lance doesn't, like, I don't think debate Lawrence Southern without the fact that, you know, he's got, you know, people like Dylan and Vosh kind of exerting force on him and causing him to be a slightly different kind of creator than he naturally would.
Yeah, absolutely. And as DJ points out in the chat, yeah, it's capitalism's fault yet again, because that is literally what it is. It's all about, you know, getting the numbers in, getting the money in, that kind of thing. And it really does suck because, you know, and here's the thing. So, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think that Lance was in with all these people before. Like, I didn't think that he was involved with that, because obviously the Surfs isn't just Lance, it's Lance and this other dude, right?
Dave. Yeah.
And I just thought that Lance did like a bunch of videos. Like, he did a really good video with is it David Wolf? I can't remember the guy.
Oh, Richard Wolf.
Richard Wolf, isn't it? Yeah, the guy who's like a really outspoken critic of the American government and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Lance is somebody that I usually agree with on most of his takes. I mean, the sad thing is that you can have the good takes, you can have the right ideas, but if you're subject to this, and let me tell you, Lance has got to do this to survive, right? If Lance called out Dylan, I don't know if the Surfs would survive. Like, there's some real harsh realities that people run up into, and I don't think that they go into this realizing that they're going to be beholden, realizing that they're going to be the mechanisms that they think are benefiting them and helping them grow their channel are actually mechanisms of control. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I leave this stream today and I go and talk to Vosh, and I say, you know what? DJMuel, he's just one of these purity leftists. These people disgust me. I don't want to have anything to do with them. Vosh, you're right about everything, you know, like, right? If I kissed Vosh's ass really hard and said, like, can you bring me on your stream? And Vosh said, yes, nocommentchick. Hey, this is my friend, nocommentchick. She's great. Go check her out. Let's say that Vosh gives me a shout out, and like a conservative estimation, 2,000 people sign up for my YouTube.
Yeah.
So that sounds good, right? Like, I'm now a 3K Andy. Hey, I made the right choice, right?
Yeah.
And now, you know, if I want to later, maybe you're gonna take Vosh on with these people.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the rub is.
For sure.
Now I've got 2,000 Vosh stands in my YouTube, and if I want them to watch my videos, I'm gonna portray Vosh in a really good light.
Yeah, exactly.
That's control.
Yeah.
That is absolutely control. And sometimes, like with the Demon Mama situation, like, if you don't know, she did a debate with Destiny,
Yeah, I
she came
saw
at
it.
him harder
Yeah.
than he expected. She made him look like terribly, right? And Destiny would not forgive her. Destiny wanted to destroy her. His whole community went after her. Demon Mama was bleeding out. There
Yeah.
was nothing left for her to do but disappear. And Vosh came along and I think did something kind of good, which is, you know, put his arm around her and, you know, helped her out, helped her through that, you know, kind of put his community into her community. But then she ends up in a spot where it's even the disagreement that she had with Vosh on Kink at Pride, you know, which she did a good job and she did actually stand up. And you don't see that a lot. Even that was like risky to her. And with Dylan, it's even more risky because she's got about 100% like convergence in terms of audience with Dylan. So like, you know, I look in her eyes sometimes and I'm like, hey, blink twice if you're, you know, you know what I mean? It kind of feels like that. And I was there too. I was biting my tongue too through a lot of this. I was supporting people like Xander Hall. I mean, Xander Hall was a friend of mine before all this, right? I was supporting people like Xander Hall against people like Mix Vivian, you know, partly because I knew that that was the direction that the wind was blowing. Like maybe not consciously, but I think that I was pulled along by these perverse incentives too.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not coming at you as somebody on a high horse who's never done anything wrong, who's criticizing these people from a place of perfect moral virtue. I was not. I got sucked into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that saved me was my community. Because if my community hadn't pushed me on Dylan Burns, I never would have said anything to him.
Yeah.
But what I was seeing was something bad happening to trans people on Dylan's show. Demon Mama not saying anything. All the people that are involved not saying anything, right? No one calling it out.
Yeah.
And my community screaming that this is fucked up.
Yeah.
And I stood up and I said something and I found out why you can't do that.
And there's nothing less leftist than staying quiet when shit like that is happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which
if
is
there's anybody out there right now in that position, like, listen, I know that there's a limit to what you can say publicly, but the way to get out of this shit is to start talking to people privately, because there are people that don't purity test you, that don't regard you, like DJMuel here, that don't regard you as damaged goods. Like, look, some people on the left, like, let's be real, will look at me as if I am shoe on head, as if I am Lacey Green, right?
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
As if I am like the scary like right wing person trying to get like, you know, trying to like weasel my way into the left, right? And we got to have some nuance for that, right? Because when people say that like everybody over on the DebateBro side are like Nazis, that's an extreme view. That's not true.
No.
They're not actually having those viewpoints. But if you say that everyone on that side is connected to some very reactionary powers, let's just say, and has to abide by those, you're telling the truth. And it's very subtle and it's very hard to make the connections. But yeah, there are people on the left that are hiding their power levels. There are people on the left that are trying to turn the left into something that it's not. And we talked about, you know, the Nazbol vortex, or you talked about that, and I did a response video to you know, you talking about that, you know, that kind of attempt at entryism of the left. That is just one of the forms of entryism that's possible. Yeah.
See, because when I looked at the Nazbol thing, it wasn't even from a viewpoint to understand that, because that's something that it seems has explicitly come from, maybe not explicitly come, but like definitely come from the debate scene, which I think is probably an extension of the YouTube scene, because again, bringing up the conversation with Sophie last week, they were talking about you know, Peter Coffin with me, and Peter Coffin in being, you know, sort of someone who had really good takes back in the day, now all of a sudden, you know, has associated themselves with these fucking horrific, you know, people like Angie Speaks and, you know, stuff like that, you know, and so like looking at this, you know, Nazbolism as a form of entryism into the left, that's a really interesting, you know, sort of thing to look at. So tell me about what you mean when you say that. Like, what are you seeing in terms of people trying to get into the left, as it were, from the
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So I think I'm guessing from the video that your main exposure to like Nazbolism was like through people like Caleb Boppin, right?
Oh
As
yeah,
those being
I just
the
thought they were
actual...
losers online. Yeah, just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Caleb Maupin absolutely is. Like, listen, Caleb Maupin blew up on me in the comments of that YouTube video, and
yeah.
literally that, and
Yeah.
and along with Caleb blocking me on Twitter, I don't know, probably got me 20 follows on Twitter. People know that Caleb Maupin's a ridiculous ass clown. Like, having him against you is a benefit, and that's why all the like bread tubers right now are reading Caleb's book, you know, on stream and like laughing at him. I think that Caleb Maupin isn't like where the real danger comes from, because his community is his community, and it doesn't really have any way to grow. What's more disturbing is people like Haas from Infrared.
Right, yeah. So, okay, I've heard about these infrared people.
Yeah. I can tell you all about them because I've been covering this for a long time. The first time I saw Infrared was a Vosh debate, where basically someone with a very large, very vocal chat like came into Vosh's chat, like the chatters from Infrared came into Vosh and said, "Debate Infrared, debate Infrared, debate Infrared." And Vosh is like, "Who's Infrared?" Right? And then one of them, this is the story, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is the lore, I like this lore. One of them donated $200 to Vosh, and Vosh said, "Okay, if you're gonna donate $200 to me, I will debate your dude." Okay,
That's
hello,
how capitalism
dude.
What's
What's going on, you know? And there was this angry ass tanky on the other end just yelling at Vosh, and Vosh just like lost his shit. He was like laughing. He was just like, you know, it was hilarious. And yeah, he sounds like a big ridiculous asshole. He doesn't sound very smart. You know, he doesn't sound like somebody you should take seriously. And so other lefties started saying, "Hey, can I get a debate with this Infrared guy? Like, you know, everybody hates him. He's, you know, a loud idiot." It seems like a pretty good deal, right? What they weren't noticing was that, like, he calls himself a tanky, okay? Now we know what a tanky is, right? That's a red flag.
That's a red flag.
Well, but yeah, we know what that means, right? You know, it's a more authoritarian, Marxist-Leninist usually, who maybe stands some people that the rest of us would consider dictators, maybe sees some nations which we would see as their governments aren't great, as being, you know, they did nothing wrong, they stand against American imperialism, therefore they're good, and we'll look at, you know, genocides as being, well, the Uyghurs, really, they're a bunch of terrorists, they brought it on themselves, right? So that's what we mean when we say tanky. Haas described himself as a tanky. So when you describe yourself as something that nobody on the left wants to be, nobody's going to question you and say, "Wait, are you really a tanky?" Well, when you peel back the layers of Haas, you'll find not Marxist-Leninism and its dialectical materialism. That was the first thing I noticed, is the guy's not a materialist, right? That's pretty weird for a Marxist-Leninist, right? They say what you want about them, but they're you know, they're pretty, you know, they're on the materialist tip, right?
Yeah.
Haas was more on the idealist tip. That was my first clue. And then I get in to find, like, what theorists is Haas all about? Alexander Dugin was the name that came up. Nick Land was another name that came up. And these were names that were notable as being, you know, National Bolshevik adjacent. Like,
they're
Dugin's
literally
got,
Nazbols,
yeah. So basically, this was a guy who was a Nazbol pretending to be a tanky. And if you don't know anything about tankies, like, right, they feel beset by the rest of us. They feel like they go into our chat and say something, you know, and we're like, "Tankies out," right? And so they're like, you know, they're really hurt by that. They now had their own Vosh. And they wanted their own Vosh, because nobody on that side has been able to, like, you know, push it back into Vosh's space the way that Vosh kind of pushes them down. They were really excited about this, but in reality, he was using that as a cover. A lot of Marxist-Leninists will be big about unity. And want to support other Marxist-Leninists because they feel unfairly put upon. And listen, like, my take is, I don't have anything against Marxist-Leninists. You know, I do think that there's like a correlation between some pretty problematic things, but I don't judge somebody just because they describe themselves as a Marxist-Leninist. But I do note that community, y'all stand up for each other before knowing what each other is about. He got in and he used Marxist-Leninist unity to cover up for the fact that the dude's a literal fucking Nazbol. So now we have Marxist-Leninists who, you know, you can question them, but they were standing up for something that I don't think any of them really believed in, and I don't think any of them bothered to peel back the layers like I did and see what, you know, Haas was really about. So that's why I take the Nazbol, phenomenon, and the Nazbol vortex is what we call like people like Jimmy Dore, and I think you mentioned somebody earlier, Peter Coffin. Yeah, people that are adjacent to that wouldn't call themselves that, but basically they're priming their audience to get sucked into this vortex. If you accept class reductionism, that is the first step to getting sucked into that vortex, and that's what we're worried about, with people like Haas, because the dude actually is charismatic. The dude actually is smart. He does more research than half of the fucking debate bros out there, and there's 1,000 examples of them getting clapped, thinking that this guy is easy, thinking this guy's not smart, right? And getting destroyed because they don't fucking know their theory, they don't fucking know their history, and he does. Now, he will warp that, and he will turn that into something else, but, if you don't know how to disagree with him because you don't know the history, he's going to play you for a fool. I think I had the right approach to Haas. My one interaction with Haas was him coming into my chat, demanding a debate with me, and me looking up National Bolshevism, Dugin, and all the other shit that he's into on Wikipedia right as he's talking. So I'm just like, he's in there and he's getting exposed, and he's not coming on with me. He's not debating. He's not spreading the legend of Haas. I'm not giving him any of those good clips. The only clips that are there are me absolutely clowning the guy. Yeah. And I probably got a little bit toxic on him too, but like I guess I feel passionately about this.
Who cares?
It's not something
Who cares about
I told him
toxic on a Nazi? Fuck him.
I told him that I don't show up to his stream and slap the dick out of his mouth, and that was probably a little bit more than I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said that on your stream. Sorry about that. I should have warned you. But anyway, I'm trying to get away from that stuff. I'm trying not to roll in the mud with the pigs anymore, because I think it's a bad look, and I don't want to look back. I don't want to have my kid. Well, I won't have kids, but like I don't want to have other people's kids like look back and be like, yeah, no comment chick was really yikes back in the day, right? I want to actually like be.
I don't think that's too bad.
Terms of,
I just want to address something in the chat, because obviously a lot of people are wondering what tankies are and stuff like that. So I just want to repeat what sort of say what Irene said, but in maybe a slightly different way so people can just fully get it. So, Flute Fanatic puts it correctly. Don't call them tankies because they're fascists. Essentially, Pointless puts here a fascist leftist. That's a bit of an oxymoron, because obviously you're not really going to be a fascist if you're a leftist. It's not compatible.
And Dugin
generally
self-identifies as a fascist. Dugin calls himself a fascist.
Yeah,
right?
there
So
you go.
You're not. That's not a spicy take at all. That's not an overstatement at all. You're right on the money there.
Yeah, what you've got to remember is that tankies. So there's a slight difference between Nazbols and tankies. Tankies are basically people who make apologies for Stalin. They say that North Korea is a good country and a good government, actually. And also, Nazbols are basically what we looked at a couple of weeks ago. You can check out the video that I did on YouTube, and you can check out nocommentchick's react of that as well, because I think that she put in a lot of stuff that I didn't know, which is what we're exploring now. So anyway, just to crack on, we're sweary beasties here. We don't give a fuck about you wanna say shit like that, that's fine, as long as you're saying it about a Nazi, I don't care. But like, that's not like me saying dirtbag leftist over here. You can use slurs, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to be toxic to Nazis, fuck do it, fuck them, you know what I mean?
The thing that I'm thinking of though is like when we use like it's more like, I call it normie. I would say normie. I did some normie anti-sex workerism right there, and you might think that this is like a little too pure. People aren't ready for this, but like, I think that when I make that joke, I'm kind of using sex workers as they're getting a little bit of the butt of that joke, and I don't want to do that because sex workers get enough bullshit already. Sex workers are people we should support.
I didn't even think of that.
I didn't think of it either at first. No. Yeah, same thing. I didn't, only when I looked at it and in making my clips did I say, you know what, that's not the best look. And in a lot of ways, that's just me like internalizing toxic debate bro culture and spitting it back out at them. And we got to be better than them. We got to show them that we are different, right? Now, we can't be 100% pure, and they will try to hold you up to that light and use that as an excuse to like, you're just a big hypocrite, right?
Exactly.
We shouldn't have zero tolerance policies. We shouldn't be excessively purity testing, but we should question our own takes, our own statements,
agree.
our own ways of coming back at people and ask, is there like a better way that I could do that? Could I
Sure.
be living the ideals that I'm trying to bring to this conversation maybe a little bit better? And in that case, I think for me personally, the answer is yes. I wouldn't call somebody else on that shit.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's the kind of thing that we got to start calling ourselves on first. And that's how you lead, you know, not by looking for somebody to say, yeah, you're bad, but to like seeing the problematic behavior in ourselves. And maybe somebody will see that and say, yeah, I guess I kind of do that too. Maybe it's not such a good look. We can have positive effects. We are stuck in a place though where a lot of the language is ableist. A lot of the language is, you know, anti-sex work, or just the way that we talk, right?
Yeah.
And so talking
It's the
to
common
somebody,
vernacular, yeah.
yeah, you're either walking on eggshells, which I don't want to do because I won't be able to reach very many people, or you're spewing, you know, tropes, and you're pushing that on. And so I think that the thing to do at this time is just be aware of it. Like when you
Yeah, for
see
sure, yeah.
yourself
Oh,
say
yeah,
something's
yeah.
lame,
I've spoken
remember that lame has another meaning. It's not just like, and the fact that we use that to be like just a kind of bad, you know, not good thing, right? Like that's problematic.
Yeah.
We do need to change the language, but we can't do it overnight.
Oh yeah,
so
for sure.
we do what
I've
we
spoken,
can, and we try to be aware of this.
I've spoken about this with my community at length. Do you know what I mean? I've had people come into my chat to, you know, literally try and make out that I'm being problematic by saying the word dumb and shit like that. And yeah, you know, I will always remind people that, yeah, it's, you know, it's definitely a thing. It's definitely, it comes and it stems from ableism. But I'm not about to ban anyone, because at the end of the day, it is so deeply entrenched in the common vernacular that, you know, everyone's going to make mistakes like that. You know what I mean? Like, and I always use the example of the guy down the pub. Do you know what I mean? Like, you try telling fucking John down the pub that, you know, he's not allowed to say psychopath anymore. You know what I mean? He'll fucking laugh at you. He'll not only will he laugh at you, but he probably doesn't even accept the fact that trans people exist for a start. Do you know what I mean? So like, you know, what kind of fucking, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, in our spaces, it's good to educate people about that, but also remember the nuance and stuff. Anyway, we're getting a bit, we're digressing a bit here.
Yeah.
But what I did want to talk about more was, so we've got this fucking guy Haz, and like I said, I've never fucking heard of him. In terms of like, you know, using DebateBros in order to get a sort of more left-wing audience. So that's something that this infrared guy did. And have you seen any more? Have you seen any more of this?
Playing off the DebateBros in order to, no, he would kind of play off Vosh, you know, and a lot of tankies hate Vosh, right? Not so much Destiny. That was the weird thing, is he played off Vosh, but then Destiny, he clout chased Destiny a little bit, and unfortunately it worked. Unfortunately, like, you know, Haz is a useful guy for Destiny to be able to play off of, and, you know, getting that spot on Destiny, even though I will give Destiny credit for one thing. Oh my god, I hate to be saying something good about Destiny on your channel, but the one good thing that he did is he gave us an unambiguous clip of Haz denying the Uyghur genocide.
Right,
and that happened from their conversation. But the other thing that's happened is Haz being brought into DebateBro spaces, which, you know, people hate Haz, right? In those spaces, like, as bad as we've said that they reject what Haz is saying. They reject, you know, what they perceive as tanky takes. So they're not buying what he's selling. But at the same time, they have kind of progressively, they didn't realize, but by debating him so much, they've normalized him. Normalizing him allowed him to be considered for panels. And what happens with panels is a lot of it is just like, you know how DJMuel and me were sitting, you know, across from each other right now? Imagine there's like 7 more squares, right? And there's like a panel host in the middle, and there's a bunch of other, you know, debate bros and debate chicks and debate sisses and debate envies around us, right? And we're having a debate, right? When we put us together, I'm not going to get to talk that much. DJMuel's not going to get to talk that much. Haz is not going to get to talk that much if he's there. But some of the conversation is going to be just like getting to know you. Hey, what kind of pizza do you like? Do you like pineapples on your pizza? Is a taco a calzone? Is an oatmeal a soup? You know, you'll get all this kind of like, you know, breaking the ice stuff. And when you do that with a fucking Nazbol, now you've got a Nazbol looking like just another debate bro, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got people thinking that, like, I don't know, you know, there's Dylan, and there's like Irene, and there's DJMuel, and there's Haas. And like, you know, if Haas is making a lot of sense to me, because he's talking about like not so much about this SJW shit, but the class thing is really, that's an appealing message to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen already. His community has grown exponentially, and it's because of this platforming. It's because of people like Stardust, people like Hans of Harkir, and I think people like Dylan Burns has appeared on a panel, not his own panel, but with Haas, that has actually normalized this shit that is like, yeah, some people said, like, you know, fascism, yeah, somebody that likes Dugin, somebody that like Dugin is one of their main philosophers, that's fucking fascism.
Yeah.
He self-describes as a fascist. There is no, like, this isn't shit where you could say, oh, no comment chick. You're just kind of like, you know, you're throwing that fascist word around kind of haphazard. I'm not. Dugin self-applied that label. Dugin calls himself a fascist. And Haas said that Dugin was based.
Wait, hang on.
Sorry for doing a Nazbol meme, but
you just said
that's what
then,
they say.
You just said then that someone said, oh, you know, you're throwing the word fascist around quite lightly. Is that something that still flies on the debate bro scene? Like, oh, you're not allowed to call someone a fascist if they're doing fascist shit?
You need to find them goose stepping in a authentic German uniform from, like, you know, the right year, and you know what I mean? It's almost like they will only recognize fascism as Nazism, and that's a culture-wide problem. In fact, there's some people that seem to think a Nazi is just a genuinely disagreeable person, the violent, you know, like that's what we mean when we say, you know, Nazis, because, you know, it's just gotten so abstracted through the culture and everything. But you can absolutely have fascism, this is gonna blow some people's mind, without anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
Haas, I haven't heard any, you know, directly anti-Semitic language from Haas, but he follows a thought leader who calls himself fascist. Like you went over in your video, a lot of the National Bolsheviks in Russia, when that thing was growing, when that thing was building, were not anti-Semitic. Some of them weren't even anti-gay. But you can have that shit. You can have fascism in absence. So the key here is that, like Dugin said, that the Nazis' perspective on Jewish people, on gay people, etc., was formed by the time and place of that fascism, and that his National Bolshevism was more of a Russian character. At the time, you know, there wasn't anti-Semitism in the mix there, but there still was palingenetic, you know, ultra-nationalism. There still was the desire to pick out scapegoats. And
it also attracted a lot of
one
actual
by one
anti-Semites to the party as well.
Oh yeah. It's
just by virtue of
I guess what I'm trying to say
with fascist ideas,
is that fascism, as distinct from Nazism, doesn't have to appear in a Nazi guise.
Of course,
and fascists are not all going to look like Nazis, and that's where I think people are falling down. Is they view these things as like a one-to-one relationship, when really it's like there's a huge overlap. Huge overlap. The Nazis were fascists, but not all fascists are Nazis.
True.
Right?
Well,
and that's what they're
to me though. It sounds like, because I remember that being like a right-wing argument when, like, I'm talking from years ago. I'm talking from like 2015. Like that is like a legit like, everyone's a Nazi now. Like, yeah, you can't call Trump a Nazi. You know what I mean? There was all sorts of that shit going on like 6 years ago. And like, you know, even the talk of like SJWs, like people like legit in 2021 using the term SJWs, you know, to describe straw man. You know, it seems to me, just in general, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that the debate scene seems to be just like a perpetuation of 2015, 2016 era politics discourse on like Twitter.
That was
and
the
Tumblr.
Golden era for the debate scene. That was when we were talking about blood sport politics. You're talking about Destiny debating fascists. You're talking about, like, you know, just like JF Garapi, Lawrence Southern, you know, all these people, like, you know, were fodder for Destiny and people like that. And it really was like, it died down for a while. Like, right, the idea of debating a fascist became really unpopular for a while, and you wouldn't even see like Destiny do it, but it's kind of been reintroduced, just like Lawrence Southern has been reintroduced. There's a lot in this movement that seems to be, like, I described it as like there's a horror movie, right? So Freddy Krueger, Jason, whoever the fucking Michael Myers is dead, right? And then they're gone, right? But some unfortunate, not very wise person is like playing around the place where they were killed. And there's a little like pentagram on there, like, oh, what's this? Well, I'm gonna cut my hand and spill my blood right here in this exact spot. And so the big bad is back, right?
Yeah.
That's what these debate bros are doing.
Yeah,
they are
100%.
enacting these rituals, which they think are like, you know, not that they think of this stuff as being dead. They think of this stuff as being past, and they think that they can still sort of get mileage off of it.
Yeah.
They can still sort of have the, hey, I debated Lauren Southern moment without having the, now Lauren Southern is a political player. And they're literally resurrecting the, you know, like right now, Lauren Southern is remanifesting as a Twitch streamer. And I've had
Jason
entreaties to debate her. They're the people that are modding for her are coming over, trying to start drama in my stream, trying to get me to cover her content so then she can cover my content. We can have a Lauren Southern versus NCC battle, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not buying it. When I cover Lauren Southern, I watch people talk about Lauren Southern. I don't watch Lauren Southern's debates because I think that the debate is a spectacle. And I think that perpetuating that spectacle in and of itself, like building, like if I show you a Lauren Southern debate, right? I'm gonna be kind of perpetuating that stuff, right? And I won't do it. And I'm trying not to get sucked into the drama of that, because that's what they want. They want to interact with Twitch streamers. There is a possibility that we can turn our backs on Lauren Southern and all of her mods and all of those people like Dylan Burns, Xander Hall, etc., who have kind of brought them back. Like there is an opportunity now to kind of quarantine that stuff, but it's going to take something that's going to be a real hard sell for the debate bros. It's the one word from leftism that they don't want to hear, and it starts with an S. It's a bad word actually in debate bro culture.
And with an S.
Solidarity.
Oh.
Shh, don't tell anyone I told you, okay? But I'm gonna say the word is solidarity.
I can't believe you said the S word on my stream. Oh my god.
It's a spicy take. I warned you. I was gonna bring the spice, DJMuel. I hope you're ready for this. But yeah, solidarity is the thing. Is the one thing that the cyber demon can't take. It's the one thing that kills the monster. Right.
That's right.
We gotta have solidarity.
Yeah.
And we gotta link arms, and we gotta stand strong, and we gotta realize that this shit has real world consequences. There's a million different rationalizations you can make for anything from Twitch politics is tiny, and this is a little tiny thing, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, to like, you know, if I don't do it, somebody else is gonna do it. There's a million different rationalizations. But we can break those up. When they see our arms locked, they're gonna realize that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
there's gonna be more of a pull. It's all about gravity. If we can move the center of gravity over to the left, if we can make intersectionality cool among the debate bros, they are little sheep and they will fall in line.
Oh, fuck
right?
yeah. 100%.
And we can have a whole different atmosphere, Twitch politics wise. Right now, there's an opportunity to, you know, chant down the evil tower. Right now, there is an opportunity to break the entire fucking scene apart, because they are fighting each other right now, and they are tooth and nail. It's not clear which side will win, but the side that I want to have come out on top is intersectional leftism. I want us as creators to start counter-programming against these people. When they throw up trashy debates with fucking fascists, we should throw up good discussions with intersectional leftists that maybe they get a little contentious. Maybe me and Mixed Viv don't see eye to eye. Fine, we'll debate it. But you know what? Afterwards, if Mixed Viv is right, I'm going to say it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I'm going to say you beat me. I'm not just you beat. It's not about beating each other. I'm going to say I learned something from you.
Wow.
And she's going to say I learned something from you. And we're going to come away from it with a stronger understanding. We can counter program against these people. And there's a huge hunger for this in Twitch for something that is not a fucking burning dumpster floating down the floodwaters, right? There's a huge hunger for this. That is what I would suggest to all of you creators out there. Like, maybe do pay attention. Do watch it. Do try to inform your audience of the goings on, but be careful, because when you stare into that void of nihilistic, perverse incentive, at some point that void's going to start to stare back. So don't get sucked into their shadowverse, to use a Yu-Gi-Oh term.
totally fucking
but
not.
I think
And
we can
it's-
do this. I think we're actually in a really strong position, and this time is more important than any. Now, I do have to let everybody know, I am moving again. I don't have a permanent place to live at this point. I'm going to be living out of a fucking extended stay hotel. My life is kind of a shambles because of this shit with Dylan Burns. I'm in a bad way. So I might not be here for a lot of Twitch streams in the near future, but I want you to carry that on to the creators that you follow. If you are a creator, I want to see you try to start counter programming, try to start thinking of ways to offer an alternative to their vision of politics, because I think that their vision of politics has shown itself to be fundamentally corrupt and toxic. And that does not lead to a good place. We can supplant them. We can fill the power vacuum that's going to appear when they destroy each other. But so can a lot of other people. 100%. And those other people that want to fill that power vacuum do not have good thoughts about marginalized people. So this is a huge crossroads for Twitch. You know, this is not a time to go to sleep. This is not a time for me to be fucking moving a million different places, but unfortunately I am. But I wanted to come on with DJMuel here and just kind of talk to people and let them know what's happening. A lot of you intersectional leftists, you haven't paid much attention to this, and I don't blame you. It's toxic as fuck. If I could ignore it, I would. I don't think that my desire to have nothing about us without us will let me do that, but I am conscious of the extent to which I've propped up some of this DebateBro culture, and I'm going to be going through my YouTube in the near future trying to take some of that stuff down and trying to put new stuff up that counter programs against, my past mistakes, right? Like I said, I haven't been perfect, and I'm not claiming to come to you as a perfect person. I did, however, have the design when I got all these DebateBros in my community. The idea was that, like, I'm going to take these eyes that have been attuned to very different things, that have been, like, almost, like, programmed not to see my takes, and I'm going to force them to see my takes. And a lot of people responded to that by unsubscribing me. Some of them didn't. Yeah. 800 and some souls are still following me on YouTube, and most of those are from the debate scene. So I think I've made an impact. I don't think about the hundreds of subs that I've lost. I think about the hundreds of subs that I've peeled away from that DebateBro culture and have made at least tolerate criticism of those same creators.
And that's definitely something.
And I'm going to try to work with that, and I'm going to try to move forward with that. But I do admit that, like, my strategy was really naive going. And
you know what, though? You know what? At the end of the day, you tried something. And I don't think you went into it with bad intentions. And I don't think you went into it with, and I don't think you did any damage in terms of, bringing your ideas to the table. So definitely don't feel fucking bad about it. And yeah, at the end of the day, we're here, and you're talking a lot of fucking sense now. You know what I mean? You're talking, well, not that you weren't before, but everything that you're saying is incredibly inspiring and good. And again, I mentioned this to you as well, is that, again, chatting to Sophie last week, they said that is something we need to do as well. If we had debates between leftists on subjects where it doesn't matter, actually, if someone wins or loses, because either side of the debate is about something progressive. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So, like, if you have a debate on what is the best way to defeat TERFs, right? What is the best way to destroy trans exclusionary, radical feminists, gender criticals? What's the best way to attack them from the ground up, kind of thing? If you have one person saying, well, I think on this end of the spectrum, we need to do this, and the other person on the other side says, well, we need to do this, it doesn't matter who wins or loses, because either way, we're punching up. Do you know what I mean? Either way, we're attacking people who are fascists. And I think that's the way that the debate scene on the left needs to start. To be honest, that we're going to have discussions about what to do and how to move things forward in society, how to enable people to do praxis in real life, how to educate people how to do direct action, no matter how small, and stuff like that. I think is really going to be the be all and end all of what you're talking about.
in the old days, they would have called it consciousness raising, right?
Yeah.
And in that consciousness raising jambalaya that we're preparing, there's one more ingredient that I think is really important, and that is good faith, right?
Yes.
This goes counter to the dominance narrative, the dominance paradigm that the debate bro culture operates by. But what it means is, like, in a situation where Mix Vivian like brings up, you know, the fact that Xander Hall was not helpful in terms of Calvin Guerra, even though he was trying to be helpful. When I have that suspicion that, like, hey, maybe Vivian's onto something, instead of using basic debate tactics, as they say, to bowl her over and to get that W, because that's all I care about in the end,
Yeah.
I should take the L.
Yeah.
I should take the L, and the L is for not for losing, but the L is for listening.
Exactly. Yeah. And it
isn't. And
in that case, it's not an L.
Actually win.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. It's a W that just looks like an L. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we gotta be like, less afraid of that shit, like more willing to make ourselves vulnerable, because it's that vulnerability that allows us to actually use discussions to come to a greater truth. I don't think that debates as like events, as like de facto sporting events, especially as fucking wrestling matches, I don't think those get us anywhere.
No.
But I think that if we frame it as a discussion and a search for the truth, and an attempt for you to find the truth, whether it lies in your own ideas or someone else's, or a mix in both, which is, I think, most of the time where it is, right? Like you're, like we were saying earlier about the Nazbolism, you're seeing the trunk, I'm seeing the tail, you know, we're making different claims, they don't seem to correspond, but if we put that together with the person that's feeling the legs, then we can say, hey, it's an elephant! Exactly. It's an elephant in the room, and that's the only way that we get there.
Yeah,
not by
100%
trying to get that W at the expense of, like, yeah, you know what, you saying that there's a hose-like apparatus up there, that's bullshit. I'm feeling it back here, and it's a tiny little thing with, like, you know, with hair at the end. It's a tail. It's not a hose. You idiot. You know, instead of saying that, saying like, I don't know, what's this third person say, and like put it all together. Yeah, I mean, like, it's a totally different paradigm, and I think I got sucked a little bit into the debate bro paradigm. That's the danger of strategies like the one that I tried to enact. But I do think that some of my strategy still holds. I do think that embracing that audience by covering Vosh, by covering Destiny, in a critical manner, is a way to get our point of view across to people who are being forced to ignore it by the fact that they're creators. It's very inconvenient for Destiny to have people debating him from the left. It's very inconvenient. Vosh has said it. He doesn't want to debate, you know, people further to the left than him. It's a bad look for him. So, you know, it's you know, something that we've got to approach, but do it in the right way. I think in the past I probably have contributed to some of their power, to some of their clout. I think I understand how not to do that in the future, and I am going to be like moving some of my content off. So you're not going to see Vosh, you're not going to see Destiny, you're not going to see Xander Hall nearly as much as you did in the past. When they are relevant, I will go over what they're saying. But I don't want anybody to be pushed out by the fact that, like, some of these people are legitimately hard to watch for people. Yeah, and I want to honor that.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things. It's like, you know, I'm coming from a place of privilege here. You know what I mean, in terms of like, you know, I'm a white guy in a white guy's world, and you know, I'm able to watch people like, you know, Vosh and Dylan Burns kind of thing, you know what I mean, and not feel that like pain, you know, unless they say something about bisexual people or queer people, which I'm sure they have, but whatever. But it's important to recognize that. It is important to recognize that, you know, if I'm ever going to watch Vosh content, which I just don't, to be honest, but if I'm ever going to watch content with Vosh in it, or with any of these debate bros in it who are, you know, being horrific individuals, you know, I'm doing that in order to try and understand what bad they're doing, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's important to like not perpetuate these people's platforms. I think it comes in the same regard as like, okay, so if we're talking about platforms, I think that like, yeah, if you're going to attack someone with a big platform, that's good, because you're punching up. It's like fighting the government. Do you know what I mean? The government have got the biggest platform. You fight the government, and you know, you actually 9 times out of 10 you're not getting across to anyone who's pro-government, but you are letting people know who may be unfamiliar with them, or you know, slightly acquainted with them, that what they're doing is bad. However, if you have a platform that is bigger than someone, for example, the Lance and Lauren Southern thing, that's bad. That's bad because
Right.
you know,
Well, I mean,
I think
yeah.
that's my opinion on that personally.
You do have
but-
to, yeah, you do
yeah.
have to think of this strategically and realize, like, kind of, there is a way to lose, even if you have a smaller platform. If you're bringing people in, and you're not able to like adequately respond to that, to the to what they're bringing, there's some chance of them like what they want when they're debating you is access to your audience.
Oh
They
no, I
wanna
don't
try
mean
to
in terms of a
feel-
debate. I
Oh,
just
yeah. In terms
I
of
just mean in
coverage.
general, like if you're gonna cover something that someone
Yeah.
said or whatever. Yeah. That's what I'm talking
Oh, absolutely.
about.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you.